that we all know about, that's the gender dimensions. And that is what society says, who is a woman? That's what society describes. It's society that calls us that. And when society calls us man or woman, it gives us some norms, some attributes, some definitions that society wants us to live by. So society says a woman should cry when they are sad, but a man should not cry. And that's how society. So if you're a man and you are crying when you are sad, then they ask you, are you a woman? I know, Susa. And I'm hearing that a lot these days. Like, I was somewhere, this International Women's Day, I was somewhere last week, and then, yes. And then they said, so there was a woman, a woman policewoman in a bus, and then an armed robber came. And then she shouted at the policewoman, and she shouted at the robber and said some things. The things they say I've forgotten. So something like, hands up, put your whatever down. Like she shouted. And the guy said, Chef Obao. Like, Obao. Like the armed robber did the things the lady shouted. And he was like, Chef Obao. And I'm like, because she's been able to do what men or what society say men should do. So, so society defines us very differently. So, I mean, like we all know, sometimes we say men or boys should play football after school and girls should be in the kitchen. It's still happening. My children, no matter how, even this morning, can you imagine me, my son? I was holding my husband's flask. It's a flask that I put coffee in it. And he says, Mommy, why are you holding daddy's flask? I said, why shouldn't I hold daddy's flask? And he says, but you're a woman, you can't hold daddy's flask. Me, my son. After all the gender I'm drumming in this boy's head, he says, you can't hold daddy's flask. I said, but can daddy hold my flask? He said, yes, he's a man. It's so difficult. I mean, society has driven norms so deeply into our head about who we are, how we should behave, our attitudes towards things. Ladies should sit like this, men should sit like that. And that defines us really, even more than our physiological attributes. And so that is who we are. And for us in the peacekeeping industry, women are supposed to be peaceful. Women are supposed to be peaceful. Women are supposed to be the bridge in the gap. Women are supposed to be the mediators. Women are supposed to be those who bring peace. And when there is war, nobody is looking for women at the forefront. They are looking for men. But when we are looking for peace, we are looking for the women. And so that's what society says we are. And I think sometimes you have to take advantage of those. Instead of fighting some of these things. Sometimes, in times like this, it's time for us to take advantage of what society says we are, what we have been trained as women to become. And this is when society needs us most, to bring those attributes to bear in bringing peace before, during, and after the election. So we've seen who a woman is, physiologically, and then also gender and sociological definition of a woman. We've seen who a woman is. We've seen as society wants us to behave, and society. And I don't need to go too deep into that. I know you understand those things already. So then we do peace building, and that's also another whole topic that we have to do, like maybe a 3-day course for. But like I said, you are the experts, and you can teach me better. But peace building includes a much wider agenda than simply preventing or ending civil wars. And I hope we know that. Even at home, we are doing peace building between us, our spouses, our children. Our children are always fighting. We are always trying to promote peace. So it's not just when there is war, like we have in Boko, or like we have in Sudan, or like we are having in Ukraine, or like we are having in Gaza. And that's not only when we have peace building. But even now in Ghana, we have so many areas where we need peace building. There's what we call the structural violence. That is violence that is permitted, marginalization, especially even amongst us. Women are highly marginalized. When we are talking about, look at parliament, we have 14.5% of women in parliament. That's violence against women. Who is talking for the women? Auntie Joanna said that there are only three out of 13 representatives of the National Peace Council. Only 3. So who is talking for women? And can you imagine 3 against 10? If we are to vote for something that concerns women, they will lose, definitely. And so who is speaking for the women? And look at it. We have over 51% of the whole population being women. And yet when it comes to representation, it's not there. It's even worse at the local government level, which is we have less than 4% of representation of women at the local level. In some districts, you don't have a woman. In some districts, local assemblies, there's no woman. And that is the stark reality we are dealing with. And that is violence against women. One day, women can rise up and say, no, we cannot take that anymore. If we don't work at that. And there are so many other violence against people. Now there is the talk about Fulbase. I don't know if you know about Fulbase. That's what we call the Fulanis. It's a big issue now in Ghana. It's a very, very big issue. They are marginalized. When you talk about extremism, there is a fear that based on how high they are marginalized, they can easily take up arms against society. And that's a big issue. And the big part is that institutions like the fire service, like the police, like the immigrations are also being pointed at as marginalizing these people. They can't get Ghana card, they can't go to school, issues like that. And so those are what we call structural violence. Even the whole system supports it. And very soon it will blow up in our faces. I mean, youth unemployment is a huge issue. Corruption is a huge issue of structural violence, where instead of money that should go into youth employment, people are pocketing it. Very soon the youth will blow up. And so those are structural violence issues that, that's what I'm saying. I'm just trying to say that we don't need civil wars to prevent conflict or to build peace. Peace building is a daily issue. And so all of us are already, one way or the other, in the act of building peace. And so peace building also requires including an agenda to work on violence against women. I think I've spoken a bit about that. As women form more than half of the population, it's very, very important that we work to bridge that gap. And that will also be a peace building agenda. Peace building, please note this, peace building seeks to prevent, reduce, transform and help people recover from violence in all forms, So we have the physical violence, we have the emotional violence, psychological violence. I mean, we have sexual, gender-based violence, sexual gender-based violence against women. I think during the COVID, we recorded higher numbers of sexual-based violence against women. I mean, most women are going through a lot of violence at home, but cannot talk about it. And all of this need one peace building or the other. So peace building it seeks to prevent, reduce, transform, and help people recover from violence in all forms, even structural violence that has not yet led to massive civil unrest. At the same time, it empowers people to foster relationships at all levels that sustain people and their work environments. Peace building supports the development of networks and relations at all levels of society, between and within individuals, families, communities, organizations, business, government and cultural, religious, economic and political institutions and movements. And I think we saw this in Auntie Joanna's statement when she spoke about what the Peace Council does. They are meeting all stakeholders from all walks of life, whether it's the judiciary, it's the military, it's the police, it's the private sector. They are meeting. I'm sure today they have met you through Auntie Joanna, for you to do your part as well. So peace building is not waiting for war. And as we are talking about the elections, we are not waiting for violence. I think the last elections we had some gunshots. We recorded about 5 deaths also in the last elections. Or someone says 6, 7, 8. The numbers are varying. But it's because it hasn't gone on record. That is why but we recorded some deaths in the last elections. And we must all work to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Whether we record it or not, whether we recognize it or not, no one should die for elections. And that is what we are all working at. And we are not waiting for Ayawaso, Southwest. We are not waiting for Dodojiodo to go up in flames before we say we are doing peace building. But all of us are supposed to be working to ensure that there is peace before, during, and after the elections. So we have seen who a woman is. We have seen peace building. We say why women in peace building, and I'll read you a few points. So women, first and foremost, women are half of the community. Women are half of the nation, and the task of peace building is so great. Women and men must be partners in the process of peace building. We don't only say we are half when we are crying about marginalization. We shouldn't only say, oh, we are more than the men, and yet when we are doing this, we should also acknowledge that we are more than the men when there is a problem. So, yes, we are more than the men, and when there is a need for peace building, we must also play a role. That's what I am saying here. Women are the central caretakers of family in many cultures, in Ghana especially. Everyone suffers when women are oppressed, victimized, and excluded from peace building. So that's one of the things I said, that we have to take advantage of gender in this case. We have been trained as caregivers. We have been trained as teachers. We have been trained as educators of our children. When you go to PTA, most of them are women. I mean, my husband has never been to any of my PTAs. I'm the only one who goes all the time. It's only when my daughter is in Form 3 that now he wants to go. But all the time I go. But that is what we've been trained as. To be the caregivers of the family, to take care of the children, to take care of our grannies. We are the heart. We are supposed to be the heart of the community. We are supposed to be the soul of the community. We are supposed to be the spirit of the community. We are everything. And that's what we've been brought up to be. That's what we've been defined as. And this is the time to take up that and use it. It's a powerful tool that we should not let society down with. This is the time to take up that spirit that we have been trained with. We shouldn't neglect it in the name of feminism or in the name of whatever. We can't neglect it. We have to use it. And women have the capacity for both violence, for both violence and peace. Isn't that so? Women, have you heard of, I saw a picture of what a woman has done to the husband. It's amazing that a woman can do that. But here we are. Women have the capacity of both violence and peace. Women can be violent when they want to. And when you train a woman to be violent, they can be very, very violent. I mean, we have women women assassins. We have women extremists or violence extremists. We have women terrorists. I heard of the black, I've forgotten their name. But we have women in all sort of things you can't think about. And so women have both the capacity for violence and must be encouraged to use their gifts, especially of peace, in this era. So because women are excluded from public decisions, leadership, and educational opportunities in Ghana and around the world, it is important to create special programs to empower women to use their gifts in the task of peace building. And I have given you percentages of women representation in government, parliament, and local levels. And women and men have different experiences of violence, and that is why it's very, very important. That's why it's important that we are represented. When Auntie Joanna was saying, she said because of how she's seen women suffer wars, that's why she's standing up for women. And because we know that when there is war, when there's violence, the men are killed, women are left at home. And I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you nicely dressed women sitting here this morning. I'm talking, cast your mind back. Cast your mind back to communities, to villages with women with 15 children, women with 8 children, 10 children, women who are selling by the roadside, women who have one at the back holding 3, one following. Cast your mind back and see how those women will suffer. I'm sure all of you, when we said she's in charge of visas, we're happy because all of you have passports. Am I lying? All of you have passports. And if anything should happen right now, you have a place to go. Very, very likely. You may be going to London or some place. Some of us may even go to Togo. Very close by. But majority of people, majority of women have nowhere to go. And that's why it's you and I, our responsibility that we do something and to make sure that there is peaceful elections. That's why you now tell me, what can you do in your role as a woman in the fire service? I'm not so much, I don't have so much knowledge about what you do or where you are, but I know that you are in a place of influence. You are in a place of, in a position of influence. You can use your power positively to ensure that we have peace. And that is why we are here. And then you can also inspire inclusion. You as a woman can inspire inclusion. So women and men have, both sexism, racism, classism, ethnicism, religious discrimination originates from the same set of beliefs that some people are inherently better than others. And women's empowerment should be seen as inherent in the process of peace building. And then lastly, because violence against women is connected to the other forms of violence, and I was talking about SGBV, that's sexual, gender-based violence, women need to be involved in peace building efforts that particularly focus on the particular form of violence. So because of all the things we know, and I think we all know how and I think Auntie Joanna spoke about that as well, how during conflict women are raped. I mean, it is a tool for most of these insurgents, most of these armed criminals. Raping women is almost like a gun. It's a tool for fighting. All sort of genocide, all sort of community cleansing can be used just by raping women. And so men, there are men here, but I don't think they are that bad. Or the men here. But we know that that's one of the biggest things women suffer, even when it is not wartime. We should see the statistics of women who are being raped. Even when it's not wartime, how much more when it's wartime, anarchy and chaos? Men take advantage of women. And that is why you are in a place and a position of privilege right now and can prevent that from happening to anybody, including your sister, yourself. Oh God. And in those times when the men get women in power, so we must use that to prevent that by all means. So what do we do? Normally, what we do is activism and advocacy. You may want to interpret that for me in your service, but activism and advocacy for peace is what we do. And then also providing relief services, acting as an aid worker is what we do. And like Auntie Joanna does, working as a mediator. And that is one thing that I hope as an association, I don't know if you've had that training, but it will be very, very good for you all to do some ADR and help. And we've just launched Women Mediators Network, And I think all of you need that kind of skill to help at all levels, whether at work, at home, wherever you find healers, as educators and participants in the development process. We have to do it. I've also told you that we are central caretakers. We have